You're listening to the Tooth Sleuth Podcast, all about the business of dentistry, hosted by yours truly, Greg Essenmacher, a fixed full arch dental expert and founder of G&A Consult, speaking with industry leaders on the dental landscape from their perspective. At G&A, we specialize in transforming full arch dental practices, teaching, coaching, and training teams to deliver an exceptional patient experience, from that first call to delivering final smiles. Whether you're a practice owner, a DSO executive, or a regional leader looking to expand your full arch program, boost same-store sales, or unlock the true profitability of full arch cases, we've got you covered. Ready to see how full arch can elevate your practice? Visit the show page or book a discovery call today. Let's turn your potential into results. Welcome back to the Tooth Sleuth Podcast, everyone. Greg Essenmacher, your host. I hope you know me, but if you don't, welcome to your first episode. I am really excited. My guest today, none other, return visit, Miss Janet Hagerman. Janet, welcome back to the Tooth Sleuth Podcast.
Thank you, Greg. I love being back. It's fun. Yeah, it was very early on that we started.
You were one of my first guests. I was so privileged to have you on, and then I see all of the activity that you've got going on. You even have a new title because you are taking your hygiene skills and you've taken it to the next level. I mean, with DSOs being a fractional CHO, Chief Hygiene Officer for these DSOs, especially the merging DSOs, a space that we live in at G&A Consult with the full arch space, because now it doesn't mean that we won't work with single location practices and big DSOs, but really that space, it's such a great incubator of information and help that they need. So tell me a little bit, I'm just going to jump right in here. Tell me a little bit about what you're finding in this niche of the emerging DSOs that really attracts you to this space in particular.
Well, I'm pretty much like you, Greg. I will work with solo practices, but I just think we have such an opportunity to work with DSOs because we influence, that ripple effect. We have so much more of an influence. But emerging DSOs are eager to grow. I even saw a statistic that a lot of dentists graduating don't really want to practice. They just want to own practices. But if they don't have a solid hygiene department, as we all know, that's really the basis of a solid dental practice. So when you start growing practices and you don't have a solid system in place, you end up what I sometimes refer to as the hygienist du jour. You just get whatever their philosophy is, and it may or may not be congruent with the philosophy of the practicing dentist, the dentist owner, or the leaders of the group. And of course, as you and I know, that business model is as different as there are different personalities. So figure out what they want as a growing group, and then how to implement the hygiene department and a lot of other departments too, because hygiene affects other departments and other departments affect hygiene. So how do we groom some leadership in that area also, so that all those different departments will work coherently in concert together?
I love what I'm hearing from you. The concept of a hygiene philosophy, right? And so, and for someone like myself that, in the full arch lane and my teams and my coaches and the different size practices and groups that we work with, it's definitely a mindset, right? We start in the discovery phase when, prospects come to us, and I'll always ask them, well, what is your vision? What's your goal in 3 to 5 years? Because it will influence the way that we customize what we do with those practices, right? Is your goal like merger and acquisition? Are you going to, accumulate, gobble up more practices in the next 3 to 5? Because, then it's questions of like the practice management system, should you bring them all under one? It'll help your valuation. Or are you planning on separating and growing your full arch? Because most of them are GP practices, right? Do you want full arch to be 50% of your revenue, or do you just want it to be adjunct, 15, 20, 30% of your revenue in those practices and your group? I mean, all of these influence how we approach. And so when you say hygiene philosophy, give us an example of a hygiene philosophy with a group that you're working with or have worked with. It's just so put some color on that for me, just so I can wrap my head around it.
Well, first of all, they're the clinical philosophies. Do you have a periodontal protocol? I mean, that's basic to any of the restorative work we're going to do. So, creating that clinical protocol and making sure it's up to the current standards, staging and grading. Um, do you have an oral cancer protocol? Do you do oral cancer screenings? What do you do? What is expected of the team? Um, and talking about full arch, d if that's important to you, how is your team prepared to support you in that? How are your hygienists trained to support you in that? So if that's something important to your practice and or your growing group, that should be a huge component of the hygiene protocol, the hygiene training, and then when we bring new hygienists on as well. So hygienists spend more time with the patient than anybody, really, good quality one-to-one time. So it's just a great opportunity for hygienists to develop that relationship and find out what the patient is interested in, what they know about implants, if that's something that they've considered, what questions do you have about it, things like that, which help pre-frame that whole situation for
Yeah,
the doctor.
y yeah, and I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you there, but when you talk about hybrid maintenance, right, for full arch, you are talking my language because so often you hear and you see, I mean, the implant and full arch business, according to Polaris, like, is $1.6 billion a year and growing every single year, and all of these arches that are being done, what is the plan to maintain them? Because we know for a fact, across the board, those that are needing full arch therapy are probably not the best at maintaining their oral health in general.
Mhm.
And so suddenly now that we're putting 4 to 6 screws in their jaw, screwing in a denture, right, for a fixed denture, suddenly now we're going to flip a switch and they're going to be great at their oral hygiene. Most, maybe, some, sort of. So the maintenance on it is going to be critically important to maintain this big investment. And so I love that. And it's really just not talked about enough because it's the shiny keys, the big numbers that everybody's talking about. So thank you for that. I want to talk about, though, your style of coaching and consulting because I think you term it grooming and blooming, right? And everybody knows that Janet is so into flowers. And I love the pictures and everything on your socials that you have. So you talk about this idea of grooming and blooming. It's really at like the heartbeat of your coaching work that you do. How did you come up with that idea? Like how do you infuse that? How did you come up with that? Talk to me about that.
Well, I have been a practicing student of the Japanese art of floral design known as ikebana for 30 plus years. I just love it. And it has to do with a close relationship with nature, which includes like seasonality. It also includes empty space. So there's line design. It's not your roundy moundy that we think of with the FTD pick me up bouquet. And also picking flowers that are typical of the season. So, Einstein said, "Look to nature, and it will give you everything that you need." Frank Lloyd Wright said, "Study nature, you'll learn everything." So I just see a huge metaphor with nature, planting a garden, taking care of your garden, cultivating your garden, and then enjoying the harvest, the bloom. So with my leadership coaching, it's similar. I have the ability to see those seeds of potential in people when they don't see them themselves. So when I work with a group, I want to know who's interested in growing their leadership skills. Because one of the things I want to do with that group is lead them because my time there is temporary. I'm fractional, but I can have all that time, that 6 months to a year, to groom a hygienist who may or may not be terribly productive clinically, but is interested in growing their leadership. So that's what I like to do groom, if you will, coach them. And then at some point to see them reach that platform when, yes, that you do, you see them bloom, you see them ready to jump out of the nest, you see them grow their skills. And that's probably where I get, the most divine pleasure is, hearing from, these not just hygienists, but anybody, that have helped, to be able to, go off on their own.
Well, and you really touched on something there that I want to drill down into a little bit. And it really is when you talk about those that are ready, right, or wanting to.
Yeah.
And so for you, when you start working with a group, what are some of those early signs that really a practice or even individuals that they're ready to, using your words, right? Blossom or bloom. It is specifically like in case acceptance, because that's a lane that we work in too. And there's so many parallels there. And I know when you were on, oh gosh, a couple years ago, right? Because you were one of my first guests, and now you're going to be episode like 140, right, sir? But I want to talk about that because I think that's so critically important for my listening audience, whether they're practice owners or coaches and consultants or entrepreneurs or even in the manufacturing space, as their leaders or becoming leaders for self-reflection. What are some of those early signs for someone with your experience and expertise that you see when somebody's really ready?
When they are interested in being coached. Would they like the idea of being coached? So, you have this spectrum of people. Some of them are ready, some of them are just plain resistant, and then you have some of them that are sort of in that middle category. So, it's asking good open-ended questions. I'm here to help, and hygienists, I know hygienists, I'm one. There are part of the process, and any coach will tell you this, is going in and getting the buy-in from the team. So, there are hygienists who say, look, I don't want to learn anything. I've been doing this for 20 years. There's nothing you can teach me. And, you can just tell by the attitude. And then there are some, the first day you're there, they say, oh, I am so glad you're here. This is going to be so great. We so need your help. I definitely want to learn whatever leadership things you have to teach. So you know that those are gonna be at the top of the list. And then they're also in the middle. They're maybe at some level of coachability, maybe they're almost there and they just need a little nudge. Maybe they're sort of at the bottom and they need more coaching and helping. So part of it, what I do when I start with a client is I send a little questionnaire to all the hygienists that I'm going to be working with. And I want to know things like something as simple as what journals do you read? What courses do you take? That tells me a lot about how dedicated they are to their profession. What's the thing that you love most about your profession? What's the thing you love most about working in your practice, the practice that you're working in? What's the one or two things you could change if you were able to? So all those things give me a lot of information about the values of that particular person. And then that helps me coach them. So when I was the director of hygiene for a large group practice, we had over 100 practices, and I had 4 direct reports to me that were like regional hygiene assistants. And when they would come to me with a complaint, I would always the first it would became a joke. Don't go to Janet with a problem unless you know what that person's values are. Because I would say, "Well, what's her value?" "Well, it would be this or that." I said, "No, did you ask that question?" So I can be able to say in a coaching opportunity, Mary Jane, I remember you told me the most important thing to you about your profession is how you help people. So help me understand how you help people if you don't share this information about these great implants that we can do for them. Um, that way, rather than a punitive or corrective attitude. Um, I think I got off on a rabbit hill there.
No, I think what
Yeah.
you're sharing is so critically important, right? If you're talking about a questionnaire like that, right, that's really learning from them about what is the information that they already have. What is the place they're coming from so that you know how to approach them and customize your approach within your coaching framework. That's critically important to be able to learn from them, to meet and approach them, and then use information later. And I love the phrase that you just used, right? Help me to understand, right? That's the soft approach of being like, come on now. We're back here. Come on, you know better than that. And as coaches, both you and I both know that there's ways to frame to soften the way that we're trying to get information from someone who's not giving us what we need. And so for our listening audience, I think that's really, a clue in of how to communicate, right? And it's so critical. It's not, it's, well, it is what you say, but it's how you say it, but it is the what. And I want to go back to the what you say because I know that you have a lot of little nuggets along the way. So for the listening audience, what's one communication habit that they could implement right away, tomorrow morning, that could really give them the biggest uplift in their practices? What's it? Give us a little nugget, Janet. I know you got a bunch of them. I'll only ask you for one. Give us one though that you use that really makes the most impact when you're working with clients.
Well, I'm gonna give you 2 because I can't decide which is
Oh,
most
good. It's a
important.
bonus. Everybody gets a
It's a
bonus.
bonus,
One
that
plus.
lagniappe thing, yeah. But one of my huge things that just drives me crazy is the expression deep cleaning. So, there is no code for a deep cleaning. I mean, it is obsolete language, and it's very dangerous because patients do not understand the level of disease that they have, for a number of reasons. So, to eliminate that, um, and the other thing that I think is really important that we can take back is the most important thing you can say is what you don't say. In other words, we talk too much in dentistry. So, we tell a patient what an implant is, and then if they don't understand or sort of it looks like the deer in the headlights, we tell them more, and then we tell them again. Well, it looks like they didn't get it, so I guess I better need to repeat myself. We need to ask good open-ended questions. So what I would say is, "So, Mrs. Jones, tell me what you know about implants," and let the patient talk because you will glean so many gems from that about their play. They could say, "Well, I my girlfriend had some. All I can say about them is I remember they were really expensive." Uh, or, I've heard of them, but I don't know that of anybody that ever had one. So, that's a great opportunity to say, well, that's interesting. You might be interested to know that currently there are about how many implants did you say?
Oh, I think you mentioned up on these. Oh,
No, implants being placed like a year. I'm
oh,
sure
the
it's
dollar amount is $1.6 billion a year in revenue that's generated from it. So yeah, it's a big industry.
whatever that translates, and I'm sure it would be easy to find that online. Actually, Mrs. Jones, there have been so many thousands of implants done annually. Um, I mean, with perio or case acceptance or with perio, we like to tell people that 50 to 70% of people have periodontal disease. That's important because I want people to know that, well, I'm not the only one. Okay. And so that's why we screen aggressively. So with implants, I would want that patient to know, oh, wow, a lot of people have implants. And so I would pull out of them what they know about it. My girlfriend had it. All I know is that I heard they're really expensive and say, you know what, Mrs. Jones, that's so interesting. That's where would use that feel, felt, found thing. A lot of people feel that way, but what we have found is that the value far exceeds the dollar amount, and we have so many ways now to help people afford the dentistry that they need. But asking those good open-ended questions, that's the main thing I would say is we just talk too much. We need to ask good open-ended questions and really listen carefully for understanding, not for responding, but for understanding. Help learn our patients' values so we can always customize our treatment plan to their values.
Yeah, and it's so savvy of you to point out because what we know to be true is that identification for patients is so critically important that they are a part of, right? Because they're coming in and a lot of times they're thinking, is this something this is completely you're just like so many of our other patients that have been in this situation before. And the second piece you pointed out, and we identify this at GNA Consult all the time, right? It's understanding what is their level of dental knowledge and create that space to learn from the patients. Where that in your dental knowledge, with that space that you have, it's like, oh yeah, I've already been to 3 consultations and 3 different doctors have told me about, and I know that there's a screw that goes into my jawbone, and then there's a healing period, and there's a post that goes in, and the crown goes on top of that, and I can have 3 different kinds, and it can be this, or this, and I know it. That's one level of patient, right? That's
Different conversation. Yeah.
everything, right? Then there's another who you describe, which really doesn't know much, and it's all hearsay that they've heard about, or it's completely shocking because they'll come in and they think they're coming in for a cleaning and suddenly their teeth are barely hanging on and they're like little flags in the wind. And you're like, no, actually, you need a full mouth extraction of all your teeth, and how shocking that is and emotionally charging for them.
Absolutely.
How do you have that conversation? And that's a whole different level of coaching to that
Yeah.
particular patient, of allowing them the journey of meeting. And so what you're describing there is really an important tool that people can take right into their practice. Two different tools that they can take in their practice is understanding and creating space for the dental knowledge gathering from a patient. And the other piece is really helping patients to understand that we work with patients just like you all the time. We do this all the time.
Yeah.
And what I've learned and what my team is learning constantly too is that the lack of wanting to take that next step for clients that we work with, and I'm sure you see this all the time, is the fear. The fear that a patient's going to ask a question or say something that the individual that's being coached doesn't have the answer to. And it's okay, you don't have to have all the answers, right? Just understanding what are some of the ways that you can respond with ability. That's called responsibility. And you identified the not talking, right? Not listening to respond, but listening to understand and creating that space. And that's where trust is built. And that's when patients actually take those next steps forward. So I love all of that. I mean, for those that are listening, like go back, rewind like 4 or 5 minutes and listen to exactly what Janet was coaching on there. Because there's some nuggets in there. Thank you for sharing that. Well, Janet, that since you've been on the program, you know this is the part of the program where all my guests play a little something called What the Sleuth is Going On. It's 3 rapid fire questions,
Oh,
first thing that comes to mind, but you've already been on the program once before. Well, taken the questions and modified them just a little bit. Are you ready to play?
I guess this is like that PBS program.
I mean, I may have been inspired by a few things that I know. I'm just
Missed so
for
yeah.
sure. So this is 2.0. Are you ready? Question for 1. What's the freshest breath you've ever encountered?
Oh, the freshest breath. Probably no, that saccharine sweet stuff. Just plain fresh air.
Plain fresh air. Okay. I thought for sure, since talked about your husband before in the green room, that when you met in Hawaii and the public, I thought for sure that was a layup for you.
That's a
Janet, what are you doing?
That's a perfect example because he's not a frou-frou guy, like he doesn't do cologne and all that kind of stuff. And he does have good oral hygiene because he's been well trained. But yeah, it's not a lot of mouthwashes and stuff. Just clean, fresh.
He's been well trained. I like that phrase. We're gonna hold on to that one. We're gonna hold on to that. Okay, question number 2.
All right.
Name one person you know that has that killer smile.
Gosh, probably everybody in dentistry. Um, oh, Kaylin Mayfield, my social media angel. She has a killer smile.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. So
She works with she's on Sarah Ruber's team. Yeah.
okay, perfect. We're gonna definitely tag her when this episode comes out for sure. And I do know you're talking about. She does have a killer smile. I agree. Okay. Question number 3. What is the best dental product invention out there, and why? Coming from a dental hygienist.
AI radiographic imaging. The pearls, the overjets, the videos, that AI imaging it's amazing. Yeah.
It is so complementary to what the diagnosis, to the treatment, to being able to share with patients in very clear, vivid imaging rather than the grayscale of, yeah, it kind of looks like right there. It looks a little bitey. Clearly, so clearly, and the integration, and there's others, right? There's definitely other applications that's being used, like tons of applications.
It's overwhelming.
That alone for identifying caries and and problems with oral health, I agree. I'm and perio, yeah. See, I'm not a hygienist. Oh, I wouldn't. You're like perio, Greg. Say perio, perio. It's the word of the day.
Yeah, what is this? Something like 90? There's more than 2 or 3 shades of gray. contrary to the novel. There's like 90 shades of gray that I read somewhere, and I mean, I couldn't tell 90 different shades of gray, and sometimes I look at these X-rays and I can't see all the incipient decay. When I see it with the technology, then I go back and I go, "Oh, yeah, now I can see it." So, if we can't identify all of it, how do we expect our patients to? So, I think that technology is just great.
It's next level. I agree. Well, man, I want to respect your time and my listening audience's time. We're in the last few minutes. Is there anything that you want to share or that I haven't asked you with my listening audience?
Okay. Um Let me know if I can answer any questions, help you with your teams. My book Selling Dentistry is on Amazon, and I don't know if you know this, I wrote this book called The Little Book of Bloom: Nature's 5 Steps to Cultivate the Power of Your Potential. So it's a quick read, good stocking stuffer, and it's sort of the essence of my philosophy of life, which then bleeds over into dentistry and leadership, particularly as well. Um, you can contact me at janethagerman.com, and that's also my website, janethagerman.com.
I love that. I was just going to ask that information. I'm glad that you shared it and offered it up. We'll make sure it gets in the show notes. My guest today has been Janet Hagerman, a fractional CHO, Chief Hygiene Officer, and a very good friend of mine, and somebody who knows how to make things bloom in your practice, in your life, and in general. Thank you so much, Janet, for being a guest on the Tooth Sleuth podcast.
Thanks, Greg. This has been great fun, as always.
If you need help with converting lead calls into consultations, closing consults into more full arch cases, or creating a more strategic marketing message and branding for your practice or group, follow me for more tips or reach out to G&A Consult for a discovery call today.